What's up, y'all? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Let It Be the podcast. This is going to be a little bit different, a different kind of episode. I definitely had something that was on my heart that I wanted to share, that I felt led to share. But God told me to just be transparent in this episode. And so that's what I'm going to do. I just wanted to first off say that I could have, if you would have told me in January of 23 that by December of 23 Let It Be was going to be like a whole thing, I would have not believed you. Let's just start there. So I just want to say thank you to all of my supporters, the people who have encouraged me, who are inspired by the things that I share. Know that I am literally moving off the strength of God. This is nothing that I would have ever created or curated for myself. So let's just start there. I just want to say thank you. I really, really, really do appreciate the support that I've been getting thus far. But this episode, I just was thinking about, like, I feel like a lot of people have had a trying 23. And just from people that I've encountered, and I know myself, life has been pulling me by the little few inches of hair that I got. Okay, so I know that a lot of people have been going through it, and I just wanted to leave off the year with a message of hope, and that's why I got shout out to Sarah at the Woman Evolve conference. Like, hope is contagious. It really, really is. And it's funny that she shared that would be the word of the year, because that's literally all I had to stand on was hope. And so I hope that by me sharing in my transparency, that somebody else is inspired, and like that y'all are standing on your hope too, because life is just so unpredictable. Especially, like, I feel like the years in like 2020, they don't even seem like real years to me. And so yeah, like, we gotta stay hopeful, stay positive, and stay feeding yourself with good things. And if you are watching this, then obviously, like, this is something that is feeding your soul in a good way. And so I'm grateful for that. But like I said, this is kind of be a little bit more intimate, a little personal, because something that, like, I have learned through this year is just being vulnerable, learning how to be more vulnerable. It's something that it does not come second nature to me. And like, I'm used to being very private, keeping a lot of things to myself. And so because of what it is that God is doing in my life and where he's leading me, I know that I have to be more open. So I just want to start off with the top of the year. Like, this was a hard year for me, and I was starting to feel very numb in like January. And it's crazy, like, I pulled up my old journal. So one thing that I am going to leave this off with is journaling, like how journaling has literally enhanced my life in the best way possible. I dedicated to journaling. It's been a couple of years, honestly, maybe like the last 3 years or so. I journal every single day. And I know it sounds crazy. There might be, like, of the last 3 years, it might be like maybe 5 days that I was just like didn't journal. But I journal every day, writing down my thoughts, just word vomiting of the day. Like, ideas that I had, what did I do today? I just started journaling it. And I've been doing it for years, and I've not missed. And I'm not lying. Like, literally, this book is full of journals. I got multiple journals that I go through. And so I'm going to definitely share some resources with y'all, things that I've done that have helped me. But I was just looking back at some of the journal entries that I had at the beginning of the year. And it was like, I was reading through it. I'm like, some days were like up and down and up and down. And I'm like, girl, what was wrong with you? You know, like, I try to, like, always do a temperament check every time I journal. How did I feel today? What happened? What was important? Etc., etc. And so I was kind of like reading through these journals, and I'm like, man, I don't know where the switch was, but my mental was like, so I felt like a lunatic, and I couldn't put words to it, and I didn't talk to anybody else about what I was going through. I didn't even really know what I was going through. I mean, other than like my therapist. But at the top of the year, I remember in one of my sessions with my therapist, I told her, like, I'm so numb. I was like, I don't even remember the last time I cried. I literally said that to my therapist, and I'm like, I don't know if that was a flex that I thought it was, because it's not a good thing, for one. But after I said that, I felt like God was like, oh yeah, say less. Because literally my life was like crazy. It spiraled after I made that comment. And I was like, in one of my sessions, I was just telling her, like, I don't know the last time I cried. I'm just so numb. And this was in like January. And so mind you, like if you kind of know me or been following me, I used to work in tech, and I got that job because I was just meddling on LinkedIn, ended up finding another job, left a stable job that I had. Nothing was wrong. I just felt like I was too stagnant. So I decided to do something different. I don't know if I really consulted with God or if it was just something that I just did on my own. But I took a leap of faith, found this job meddling, and I hated it. Like from the beginning, I don't think I walked away from that job a better professional. As far as like growing like in the direction I wanted to grow in my career. But I did get a chance to connect with some great people, and I got a lot of great experiences. So it wasn't a complete waste, because God doesn't waste anything is really what I want to talk to y'all about today. So the job was like, it was what it was, but professionally, I just don't think that I really thought that through. I just made a decision and moved on it. But from there, having that job, with the technology changing, AI, I knew that eventually I was going to get laid off. It was a conversation that was had the year prior. And so I was just like, whenever it happens, like whatever, it is what it is. And I ended up getting a notice like, okay, this was like February, March. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna get another job. So a friend of mine has a consulting firm, and she was telling me like, hey, I need some help with some grant writing, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm the type of person, I don't shy away from opportunities. I feel like you can always learn, you can always grow, add a new tool to your toolbox. And so that's what I did, and took that job. And it was a cool experience. You know, I got a chance to be connected to things, because I'm the type of person who, I like to be involved. I like to be doing things with impact. I've always been that way. And my job that I was working at wasn't providing that for me. And so I was like, cool. So I had this part-time job where I was doing grant writing and just helping out with that organization. And it was a cool experience. It was what it was. Grateful for her. And I saved every check. I never spent a dime of that money. And I didn't know why. I just was like, put it in a separate account, didn't touch it. And so this is like January, February, March. Mind you, I'm telling y'all, like my mental was like on a decline. I was not okay. And so just even having a dog, dealing with that transition, because it's like the first year was like, oh, great. But like I don't have kids. And so I'm used to being able to be free and moving how I want to move. But now I have this thing that I'm responsible for. And I guess let me get the backstory to even my puppy, because I'm not a dog person at all, but something that I had been praying for was companionship. And I wasn't specific when I was asking God these things. I was just telling him like, God, I need companionship. And that's what I was praying for. Now I didn't think it was going to come in the form of a dog, right? But I remember God telling me, make room. And I like physically make room in your house. And this is before I was like still in a smaller apartment. I'm like, I ain't got much room to make, but I could not ignore it. I kept hearing make room, make room, make room. And so I'm getting rid of old clothes. Like I didn't know what that meant, but making room in my house. And so this was 2022 when I got that word from God, like make room. Or 21, at the end of 21 is when I started hearing make room. 22, I'm like physically clearing out space in my house. And then at the beginning, I had some money that was like saved that I was supposed to deposit, and I never deposited it. Didn't know why. But one day after church, I was just like, God, like I just feel like I'm gonna go look at the dogs at the dog store. And it must have been an ad on the Instagram or Facebook or something that made me want to go look at these dogs, because like I'm really not a dog person. But I go and I'm chilling. I went and sat at a coffee shop when I got this idea, like just go look at some dogs. And so after I left the coffee shop, I go and I check out some dogs at one of these pet stores up here. And dogs are expensive for one. So I went and played with this little poodle, and it was just so cute, and it took to me well. And I was like, okay, how much? And it was like $6,500. And I'm like, oh no, they ain't that cute to me. So then I started researching, and I'm the type of person, if I put my mind towards something, I'm literally gonna do it. And so I started researching other dogs, looking around the city or surrounding cities, like if anybody had any dogs available. And this is going somewhere, I promise. So I had to go to Kansas City in like maybe February, March. I had to go to Kansas City for like literally a couple of days. And something told me, look in Kansas City and see if they had any puppies there. So I just did a search on the internet, and I found this lady who had a litter. Now it was her first time having a litter, and the amount that the dogs were was the exact amount of money that I did not deposit that was just in my safe. And please don't come and try my safe, because I live in Texas and it is open carry. Just saying that. But so the money that I never deposited where I was supposed to, it was the same exact dollar that I had to give to the lady to pay for my dog. And I went to Kansas City, and the litter was available the exact time that I was going to be there. Literally, I was there for like 36 hours or something like that. It was crazy. Maybe, like, it was not a long time. So I go to Kansas City, go down and get this dog, and it happened so seamlessly. So I was like, cool. I was excited to have a new dog, whatever. So that happens. The first year was great. It was fun. I was doing all these cool things. And then it was like, okay, now year 2. And it's just like, dang, I miss my independence. Like, I miss all these things. And I'm like starting to be grateful, because I'm like, God, thank you that I don't have children, because when I turned 30, I felt like, oh, I'm behind. I should have been having, kids and a family by now. So I started thinking all of these things. But the dog is so much a responsibility. And I'm like, Lord, shout out to the parents, because it's not my season. And I accept that, I really accept that. And anyway, so love my dog. But back to about March, my dog is a poodle, and they have endless amounts of energy. And he broke his femur bone, hit his leg on the side of the playpen. He jumped out my arms and hit his leg on the side of the playpen. This is in like March, and I never, like, by this time, obviously, like, I'm emotionally attached to my dog, and like my heart is broken because of that happened. And it technically was my fault. I was holding him, and he peed on me, and like it shocked me and shocked him, and he jumped and broke his leg, right? And so after that happened, I'm like, God, and I did not have insurance on my dog. So if you are a dog owner and you can afford it, please get insurance, because it is crazy. So that night I had just literally like got off of a meeting, because my time was like so spoken for, because I had 2 jobs. And so I had just got off a meeting. I was tired, and I was hungry. I was not in a good headspace as it is. So when that happened, I had to go. 2 of my friends helped me out, and they was like calling emergency rooms, and I ended up finding an emergency room to take him to. And to see him alone, they were trying to charge me like $1,300. And by this time, I'm like, oh my God, like, thank God that I have the money to spend on him. But I don't want to, that's a lot of money. Like, I don't care how much money you got, how well off you are. Spending unexpected $1,300 is crazy. And I wasn't about to do that. So I asked them, like, well, what can you do for him? They were trying to tell me, like, well, we can put him down, or we can, amputate his leg, all these things. And I'm like, oh my God, like, that's just not the news that I was expecting to hear. And so that happened, and I'm like, okay, we decided, like, okay, I can just take him to his vet the next morning, because it's like 11, it's late at night by this point. And so they give him like a morphine shot, and that was it. And that cost me probably like $300-400 just to get for him to get a morphine shot so that he wasn't in pain. So the next day I took him to his vet, and they did an x-ray on him, and told me basically, like, yes, his femur bone is broken, and it's broken up so high that you could do a surgery, and that surgery was like, to put a rod in his leg was like $5,000, or to amputate his leg. I didn't want to entertain that, because I'm like, I'm not going to amputate his leg. That's just not an option for me. And so for me, I told them, no, I didn't want to do that. There has to be another way. But that surgery was $5,000 to get his leg restored, like to get the rod put in his leg. And I'm like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. And that visit alone was probably like $800 for them to, they told me, like, the option was we can just cast his leg, put it in a splint, but it's not going to heal the right way. And they were just telling me all these things, like, or you can get it amputated. And I'm like, well, no. So we put it in a splint, and I had to go to the doctor weekly to get his leg readjusted, get a new splint on his leg. And that was already becoming pricey. So I'm like, God, this is expensive. Like, dogs really are, it's like a child. Like, they really, really are expensive to pay for his medicine and all these. And so I'm doing these weekly visits to get my dog taken care of. And after the fact, I'm like, I can't. So in the midst of that, this is the big thing. In the midst of that, I brought up my job, because I ended up getting laid off from my job. And this happened shortly after he broke his leg. So I'm like, well, how can I afford to still care for my dog and care for myself? Like, it ain't like that over here. So I'm like, God, that was like, this year was a year that I really learned how to really just put my faith in God. Like, that's all I can do is put my faith in God. And that's when it was like amplified. But when I was saying earlier how, like, I don't even know the last time I cried, baby, tears. I'm like every day, crying every day, because I'm like, God, what are you doing in my life? I don't understand what's happening right now. But I was like, okay, well, I have to like, in the midst of that with my dog, he ended up getting an infection on his leg because the splint was on for so long. He got like some kind of skin infection. And so it was just, that was a whole thing within itself. So mind you, I'm not working right now, and my dog his leg is like rotten. Like, it was just a bad situation with his leg. And I'm like, God, like, what is happening right now? And so in the midst of me not working, I knew that the part-time job that I had, like I said in the previous episode, like, God, I knew that that's not something that I was really supposed to be doing because I had unfinished business. And at the time, like, Let It Be was like buried. I wasn't thinking about Let It Be, but I knew God had already told me, like, hey, you got work to do, things that you're supposed to be doing, and you doing something else. And so I was just like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. So half of this year, and this is another thing while I want to share, why I'm sharing this, is because people will look at you on social media, because it's a highlight reel. I share my highlights. I wasn't sharing every little moment of things that I was going through, but you don't know what people are going through. So don't be envious of what you think somebody has or what you think that they're doing. You don't know what is going on. It's ghetto over here, okay? Like, I'm literally living off of my faith. Like, and this year alone, it was amplified, and I had to become, like, you could have never told me that I would be crying over a dog and praying over a dog, calling my grandma, she praying over the dog. Like, and it wasn't about, I mean, I'm responsible for him, but it was just like, God, like, you have to come through. You have to do something. And God will he care about the small things concerning you. And so that's a point that I want to make for somebody. Like, I'm just sharing my testimony, but don't think that something is too small or too insignificant for God to, like, work through, because he can work through everything, and he will use everything. And so in the midst of this, it was showing me, like, having a dog overall has really exposed my heart, because I was so guarded, and I didn't like, vulnerability is just uncomfortable for me, you know. But having a dog has really exposed a lot of things in my heart, good and bad, like how I need to learn how to be more compassionate, more loving, more gentle, more kind, all of these things. And I didn't think that that's why God was giving me a dog. I thought it was just a companion, but it's like, no, babe, this is like an actual relationship. And it's similar to like a relationship in a romantic way, and your relationship with God, relationships, you have to have all of these things. And God was, these qualities, and God was using my dog to show me that. And so going through all of those things with my dog, losing my job, and not even being fully present mentally to even do my second job. So I had to let the job go too. I had to tell them, like, I need to take some time, because I really just need to hear from God. And so in the midst of my dog having his infection around this time, it's like Mother's Day, and my heart is broken. But something, I had like a little faith, like a little mustard seed of faith that was like, God is going to come through. I don't know how, but he's going to come through. And when they told me that surgery was like, it was really like $5,200 or something, and they wanted it all up front. And I was so desperate at one point. I was like, I'll just do it and God will just restore me. And I was like, I couldn't really bring myself to do that. But God is a redeemer. He's a restorer. And so around Mother's Day, I'm like, okay, well, at this point, he has this infection in his leg, and the bone is not going to heal the right way anyway. So I was just like, I'm going to have to surrender him. And not because I want to, but because I can't give him what he needs. Because it was real hard for me. Like, it was starting to, like, all the money and all the things that I was saving, like, I was starting to live off of that. And so when that happened, I was just like, God, like, I believe in a way that you're going to come through for me. But even if you coming through, it's not in the way that I expected or hope for, as long as my dog is better. Like, that, it is what it is. So let me tell you this. So I called around, because like they say, like, oh, if you surrender him at a hospital, they'll just fix him and then adopt him out. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's what I'm gonna have to do. And so I ended up, they was like, well, don't do that. Somebody else told me, like, a dog lover was like, find a rescue. They'll help you. So I reached out to this rescue. Shout out to Doodle Dandy. I reached out to them. I think that's the name of it. I'll find it and put it on the bottom of the screen. But shout out to them, because I reached out to them and I'm like, hey, told them the whole situation. I told them that I had lost my job. I told them, like, everything that I had been doing, going to weekly visits with my dog to make sure that he had everything that he needed, but it just wasn't working. So I was going to surrender my dog to them. And so the thing was, like, they'll adopt him into a temporary home and then get him the care that he needs, but then they would adopt, like foster him to a home and then adopt him out to someone else. And so my heart was broken. But it was Mother's Day, the day that I caught this lady, and I asked her, I said, is there absolutely anything that you can do to help me before I give my dog away? Because I've invested not just money, time, like my emotion. Like, I love my dog, right? And so I'm like, is there anything that you can do? She said, let me call you right back. This lady calls me back like 20 minutes later. She said, go online, you fill out a you fill out a foster paper. I'm not gonna be a person crying on the internet. She's like, you fill out a foster paper, and we're gonna allow you to foster your dog, and we'll cover everything. You don't have to pay for anything. Woo, Lord. And that was just the first. That was like God's kindness. He was showing me his kindness to me, because he cares about the small things concerning you. And so when that happened, immediately I fill out this paperwork. The same day, Brody's able to go and get the care that he needs. So they go, they give me medicine for him, all this. And his leg was really bad at the time. Brody, come here. Come here. So Brody had to have he did not have to have surgery. After they looked at him, gave the medicine that he needs. When I tell you, literally a miracle, my dog, he broke his femur bone. My dog is able to, he can run, he can play, he can do everything that he was able to do before. Say hi, bro. He was asleep like he got a job. Literally, my dog is able to run. He's able to play. He can do everything that he was doing before. It took time to heal, but this taught me so much during this process of like just how to be loving, how to be caring, how to be compassionate, how to be more patient, because that was the one thing that I struggle with is patience. Like, I'm not the most patient person in the world. I'm just going to be honest. And my dog, I feel like he's a special kind. I feel like God was like, you wanted patience, because that's the thing. You ask God for something, and He's not just going to drop it in your lap. You have to be able to utilize, like, give you an opportunity to be patient. And I get this opportunity every day, and I'm grateful. But this changed my heart, and I just would have never imagined something like this would be the thing that would like soften me up so much. When I tell you I cry every day, I've cried so much this year, not just tears of sadness, but of gratitude, of adoration, just of happiness, of joy. Like I feel like my heart was so scaled for so long. And this situation with my puppy, like it changed the things. And God knows He knows what you need, and He knows, what it'll take to get to you. So don't minimize those small things or make them insignificant because it's just a dog. Like, it's just a dog, but this dog has changed my faith. Like, it gave me a chance to really operate out of a space of faith, right? And so when I was going through all of those things, like on top of like losing my job, having these issues with my dog, my health was starting to kind of be, I was just having some health issues. I was having issues with my family and their health. And so mentally, like, I still was like struggling this year. But I just decided, like, God, like, whatever it is that you want to do, because of what He showed me through my dog, I was like, I just want to see what else you're going to do this year, like, you know. So I kind of took my hands off and stopped looking at myself in a sense of like I'm failing, or because that's what I was telling myself, like, you fail, you're 30, you don't really, I was 30, you don't really have things to show for it. I was just telling myself all of these lies, and I was feeling so just down on myself. But then I'm like, but God is in control, right? And so, like I said in the previous episode, like, this was really my year of surrender. It's like, God, have your way. And I'm sharing this because I want to encourage somebody, because we have all had a trying year, but you never know, like, how God, He's a redeemer, He's a restorer. Like, you never know how He'll use those things that you're going through to work for your good. That's why Romans 8:28, for we know that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. Like, that is my grounding scripture. It has been my grounding scripture, because God does not waste anything. Nothing is too insignificant for the things that you go through. And so fast forward, like, not working all summer, I didn't want to work. I made the mind up, like, okay, well, clearly I'm not supposed to be a professional worker, so I don't want to work. And I was literally living off of severance and everything else, like savings and all of that. And so when that stuff was starting to kind of dwindle, I'm like, oh Lord, I need something. Like, I need some help. But in the midst of that, God was like, invest in yourself. And I'm like, invest in myself, how? He's like, I gave you something and you ain't doing nothing with it. And in my head, like I did have an episode earlier, like an audio only episode. Shout out to LaStar and Summer. That episode was so pivotal to me, and I love y'all and I thank y'all for that time and for literally pushing me, because it did something to me. And so with that episode with Summer, and God was telling me like, hey, with Summer and LaStar, he was like, there's more. Like I gave you something to say to people. So invest in yourself. And I had all these excuses, like my MacBook was old as dirt, and like I don't have the right equipment. And he's like, but you got the resources to get them. And I'm like, I'm holding on to it. Like, no, God, like I need this just in case. And God is like, do what I said, please. You know, like do what I said. And so I started doing that, and literally everything has like changed. So I started investing in myself. I got this equipment, and mind you, these are faith moves. Like I said, don't be jealous or envy what you see people doing, because you don't know what's going on the other side. Because I didn't have a job when I bought my camera equipment and my computer and the equipment that I have for my podcast. I didn't have it like that. I was literally acting out of faith. And so after that happened, I'm like, okay, well now, like God, it's like, I'm like, please, I need a job. And so I had made up in my heart, like I wasn't going to make another move or get another job just because I could, if it wasn't something that God had led me to. But let me tell you how God did something for me in a matter of 3 days. After I really decided in my heart that I trust you, God, like you'll provide for me, like order my steps, and whatever it is that you'll have me to do, I'll do. So I was decided to stop doing the lazy, easy apply on LinkedIn, because that's literally what I was doing all summer. I was doing easy apply jobs, no intention to work anywhere. But I saw this job online, I found it. I was attracted to the title, read a little bit, and then applied. And you know how sometimes jobs will be like, why don't you, like when you submit your resume and then they want you to like enter in all the extra information? I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Literally just submitted my resume. That was that. A couple hours later, I get an email. They're like, hey, we want you to come in and interview for this role. And I'm like, that happened too fast. And I've just had experiences with going on job interviews. And I was just like, y'all too thirsty. In my head, girl, you the one that need a job talking about they thirsty, but that's how I felt. And I was like, we'll see. So I go into this job, this place, and I see the people. And my first reaction, I was kind of turned off, I'm not gonna lie, because I worked in offices where they're small and they're not diverse. And I just was like, I don't want to do this. It just felt miserable. So I had an interview, and I'm literally like, making, like, I don't want to say I'm making up stuff, but I was literally pulling answers out the air of stuff that they was asking me, just talking, just doing stuff. And so afterwards I go home. This is about Tuesday by the time I get the interview. So I go home and I get in the bed and I cry, and I'm just in the bed just sad, because I'm like, God, like, why are you doing this to me? Like, what is happening? Woe is me, woe is me. And I kind of felt like with the way that the interview went, like I knew that God, there was more. I knew that something was gonna happen. The next day, the same day, they interviewed me like, hey, we want you to come in and meet the CEO. And I'm like, I knew I got the job at this point. My spirit, I knew that I got the job. My spirit told me, basically. And so I go in and I'm looking, because I was like, had my complaints about them not being diverse, et cetera, et cetera. But then after I had that second interview with the CEO, then they take me to the back and they show me all the people that work there. And first of all, it was very diverse, not at all what I was expecting or what I perceived it to be. It was the complete opposite. So in a matter of me needing a job, like at my wit's end, like, God, like, I don't know how I'm gonna go to the grocery store. I don't know how I'm gonna pay my bills. All of these things were happening, and God's like, do you trust me? Then do what I said, right? And so I get this job. From the time I found it, apply, interview happened in 3 days. Now, I work for the government, basically. It's a government job that I got. And the job, like, the healthcare, like, it's just benefits and things that I need. And I'm still in the midst of this, but the job is so much bigger than me. It's like, I be telling people, like, I don't know how I don't feel qualified for this job necessarily. But since I've been there, like, I filed my LLC. I started actually building my business because of the information and the things that I've been able to learn and things that people that I'm exposed to. So I'm like, dang, God, like you really, like you don't waste anything. So I'm just sharing that this part of my testimony to encourage you, like no matter what it is that you're going through, like it's not insignificant to God. And it makes me think about, so something that I started doing this year, in the midst of like trying to figure my life out, I started reading the Bible like all the way through. And shout out to Crystal Renee, because she's the one, Crystal Renee Haley, she has Keep It Positive Sweetie. She talked about an app that she used to start reading the Bible all the way through. And so I downloaded it, and that's what I started doing. And so, and let me tell you, like before that, I was really intimidated to read the Bible all the way through, because for one, you think like it's boring. I don't know where to start. I don't know what they're talking about. So I had all of these things. I was really personally intimidated to read the Bible all the way through. But I started doing it, and the Bible is juicy, okay? It's like, y'all watch like reality TV shows like that. It was real, it was craziness going on. It's very entertaining. It's a lot of things happening in the Bible, but in particular, and y'all know, like I be keeping my notes because I don't want to be on here rambling. So in particular, I got to like at the end of Genesis, God promised Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. So in the book of Exodus, which is basically like the extension of Abraham's family, like his people 400 years later, they're in Exodus and they're enslaved to Pharaoh. Now, before we even get to Moses, because a lot of people know that story, know the book of Exodus because of Moses, but let's talk about Moses' mom. We talked about earlier about how God doesn't waste anything. He uses all things, right? Moses, Pharaoh was like, he wanted to kill all the sons, all the first sons. He wanted them to be killed. And you got to read the story for context, but I'm going somewhere. So Moses, his mother, she was an Israelite woman. She put her baby in a basket and sent him down the river. Now, Pharaoh's daughter found Moses and then went back to the mother and said, hey, we'll pay you to nurse him. And that just goes on to show, like, the mom, I'm sure the mom didn't want to give her baby away. You don't know what's about to happen to your child, but it's like, well, life, whatever happens is going to be better than what they're trying to do to you here. But God, he's a redeemer. He's a redeemer. He found, like, the Pharaoh's daughter found the baby and then ended up went to go back and find the mother and paid the mother to care for her baby, which is something she would have done anyway, right? And so, like, reading that, and I'm like, wow, God, like, you really don't waste things. But so then you get into the story more of Moses and how he's trying to get Pharaoh to let his people go. He was offended by the request from Moses and started being extra harsh to the people and making them do extra work and just was very harsh to them. And so they went through all of these different seasons and all of this bad stuff was happening. And Moses is like, God, like you told me that he would let my people go, but then you hardened his heart and doing all of these things. And I'm reading this and I'm like, God, like, why is this happening? Like, why do bad things happen when you've given a promise, but all you see is bad things? Because I know that I've been there. It's like, God, well, I have a vision for my life that you've given me, but where I am right now, it doesn't look like that, None of this makes sense. And then, like, you're allowing these things to happen. And that's how I was starting to feel earlier, especially earlier this year, with just like everything. I felt like everything was going bad to worse, like over time, right? And I'm like reading this story and I realized, like, God allowed all of these things to happen for us, like for the people, so you can believe. So like when you go through hard things, like, and only God can get you out of them, that's why he allows those things, because we go through hard things, but they don't never take us out. Not if they never take us out. If you believe in God, you know that, and you can lean on his word and you trust him, you go through hard things, but no matter how hard it is, like you look up and you're on the other side of that thing. But it's a process. And that's the word that, like, I hate that word personally. It's like, oh, it's the process. It's the process. But God, how long am I going to be processed? How strong do you want me to be? Like, I was having all of these thoughts. But then reading this Bible, I'm like, my God, like, all of this bad stuff did happen. Like, we're not exempt from experiencing bad things and heartbreak and hardship, and bad things happen to good people sometimes. They do. I don't know why, but it happens, right? But so I'm reading through this Bible and I'm like, dang, like, God, like, even the bad things things, like you can still use it for the good. And so I just wanted to share this with y'all. Like, first of all, go back and read. If you want to read the whole Bible all the way through, like you can literally do Bible plans on the Bible app. The app that I downloaded is called Bible 356 or 365 or something like that. But it literally is helpful, and it helped me see the word, like it helped me digest the word better instead of just reading it without any intent. And so it made me like, it's so relevant. And the Bible is full of, it's entertaining for one. It's a lot of things going on. Like I highly recommend that you do that. But all of the good things and the bad things, God allowed Pharaoh to do all these harsh things, but he still used it for his good. And he still got the glory out of it. And God's going to do the same thing in your life. So no matter what it is that you've gone through this year, how hard it's been, you might be confused and you don't know, how you're going to get through it or what good is going to come. You ain't got to know. All I know is that you're going to stress yourself out trying to figure out what the good is. You just got to live. And you just got to be processed. But one thing that I do know is that you can't go through this process alone. So I just want to encourage you, like if you are tuned into, like, this is a God thing, and like I want to share stories and like people to be able to share their businesses and relate, but ultimately, like, it's time to like really like lock in and get to know your maker. Like God, Jesus is who I am a servant of, like the Lord. So I just want to encourage y'all to like get into this word and don't depend on learning more about God. Don't just solely depend on podcasts and other people's interpretation or sermons. Like, open up the book for yourself. Like, it literally has changed my life. It has changed my faith, the trajectory of my life. Like, now that's why I can continue to share things, like, because before I would have, like, I didn't even want to be on camera. You know what I'm saying? And so now I'm on a camera crying and all of these things that like I never wanted to do. But it's because like I trust God. I trust that I am the living word. Like I trust that he is living inside of me, and that like all things work together. So it's like completely surrendered. But I didn't get to that point until I had to go to a different level in my relationship with God. So I just want to encourage you that if you are going through hardships, like, don't be dependent on other things, because all that other stuff is really sinking sand. There's things that I've leaned into that I thought would help me, like getting high or drinking or isolating myself, or, like music or men or just whatever, like there's so many things that you think that can distract you, but don't nothing satisfy you and don't nothing fulfill you like the word of God. So I just wanted to share my testimony of this year, and thank you all for tuning in to Let It Be the podcast. And I'm excited for what it is that we are gonna be building in the new year. It's all about God though. So it's all about y'all going closer to God. And so that's what my mission is. And I'm grateful if you've tapped in so far. But I did want to share a couple of resources with you before I go. And none of this is sponsored or anything. It's just genuine things that I've done to help me get a better space, get a better headspace mentally. So I'm going to share some books with y'all. This is a book that I'm actually starting to read now. I bought it a while ago, but Dr. Anita Phillips, she is amazing. I'm excited this is my new year book that I'm starting. But something else, like a little bit more, I'll probably share this in some other episodes, but I'm kind of going through, like, I talk about me having childhood trauma and not understanding generational curses and things like that. And this is a book that I started reading this before I was ready to, and I had to put it down because it's real deep. But it didn't start with you. This was a good book that helped me just get a little bit of clarity. I ain't finished with it because, like I said, it got real deep, and I was like, oh, I'm not ready for that. But another thing, I talked about journaling. Like, I journal every single day, and I would encourage you, even if you don't have a journal that you've purchased, I would say definitely get you a journal, like a blank journal, and just journal your thoughts. Just empty them out, so that way you can go back and read to see how far you've come. This is also another book that I read so fast. Like, it's a book, but it's also had journal prompts and questions and things, so it was very intentional. And there is another one, I think it's in my drawer, I forgot to grab it. I'm gonna share it. But Sarah Jakes, she had, matter of fact, hold on, let me go grab it. Okay, I had to go grab this other journal real fast. But this journal, Sarah Jakes has a journal. I don't know if y'all know that. It's like a journal to her Woman Evolve book. I love Sarah. She is the GOAT. But like this journal, I started answering some of these questions, and I was like, oh, Lord. It's deep, but it's good and it's personal and it's so helpful. Like I started doing this journal too, but this is just throughout the year some of the resources that have helped me. This is one of my all-time favorite journals. I did this journal. Excuse me. I did this journal last year and it was super helpful. Very revolutionary to my walk. But this is a good journal that I would recommend. And last but not least, I can't wait to have her on. But Miss LaStar, baby, this is my journal of the new year. This journal, like I showed y'all this already if you follow me on Instagram. But LaStarCofer.com, go get you a Be Good to Yourself journal. Journaling has helped me so much. And I pray that it helps you. And I pray that me sharing my testimony has been a blessing to you. And I'm excited for Let It Be the podcast in the new year. So I will see y'all in January. Make sure you catch up on all the previous episodes. You can subscribe to me on YouTube at Bre Fergie. Follow me on my socials at Bre Fergie, BREFERGIE. And you can also subscribe to Let It Be the podcast or Let It Be podcast on Facebook and Instagram as well. Subscribe to me on all streaming platforms. But I'm so excited to grow and I cannot wait to see what God does in 2024. But I just want to say, set your intentions of the new year really, and I would suggest that you really just get connected, get tuned in with God, like learn his word and learn what he thinks about you. Pray, talk to him, get in community, find you a church home. We're gonna have to start limiting some of the things that are toxic to us, like social media, like the wrong kind of music and shows and things like that. Like, let's really be intentional in the new year. That is my prayer for you. But until next time, I hope that you have enjoyed and have gotten something from this episode. But I will see you in 2024. God bless y'all. I love you, love my subscribers and my supporters. I really appreciate y'all. See y'all next year. Bye.